are live on YouTube. So that's good. So if we have any YouTube joiners, hello. Thanks for joining us. Krista, I think it's good if we go ahead and get started. I want to be respectful of your time. And I think that that's totally fine for us to get started. And I'm actually going to press play on our regular recording too. So now we should be recording on YouTube and just on Zoom. And yeah, so I think that we'll go ahead and get started. First, Krista, I just want to thank you so very much for joining me here. This is our Green Table Talk. This is actually our third Green Table Talk. So it's something that's still fairly new at the time, but it's something that we started this year in 2021, where we wanted to basically understand and get a better idea of what amazing people of color are doing as far as environmental justice and other related fields, just because it's so important to, one, learn from you, and two, kind of share the experiences and the things that we're doing. So first, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Diamond Spratling, and I'm the founder and the president of Millennials for Environmental Justice. We do all things related to environmental justice, but particularly focusing on low-income communities and communities of color and figuring out what those solutions are, but also kind of building an online community as it relates to environmental justice, because we understand that that's just as important, of being able to have people that look like us that care about the topic, but also urging more people to care about this idea of environmental justice, just as we were talking about a few weeks ago. So with that, without further ado, I'm actually going to go ahead and pass it over to our very amazing guest, Krista. So Krista, go ahead and take it away.
Hi everyone, my name is Krista Montgomery. My work is essentially an environmental scientist for an environmental consulting firm, and I'm also an intern for Health and Harmony, which is an NGO, and they do a lot of planetary health work. My background, I went to Spelman College and also Tulane University. Environmental science and public health has been my thing for like the past 6 years. Some of my favorite projects focus on health equity and environmental justice. And my work and research kind of shows that. I'm not an expert in planetary health, but I'm super excited to kind of have this dialogue and conversation. And hopefully I can answer the questions to my best of my ability.
Awesome, amazing. Thank you so much, Krista. I mean, you and all of your work sounds amazing already. And you know, I'm in the public health field too, so I have mutual love for that public health space. So just thank you so much already for being here. So let's actually kick off our questions. But before we do so, I just want to let everyone know, if you have questions, if you have comments, whatever they may be, go ahead and put them in the chat, whether you're joining us live through YouTube, but also through our Zoom channel. Feel free to let us know what your thoughts are. If you agree with something we say, you disagree, you want to talk it through, we said something that you have no idea what we're talking about, that's okay too. Just let us know. We're all here. We're all a community. It's all inclusive. So we're excited. And I'm actually going to kick off the first question, which I'm burning to know. What in the world is planetary health?
Okay, so there's a couple of definitions. Essentially, planetary health is the study of understanding how human behavior and human health kind of disrupts ecosystems and things of that nature. It's a very interdisciplinary field, and its focus is essentially understanding how we can improve the environment to help human health and other species. And at the center of it is this idea of interconnectedness. Um, and there are a lot of subtopics that are a part of planetary health, from water scarcity to infectious diseases, environmental justice, and even biological shifts. So it's a very wide field.
I feel like you said a lot of just like keywords in just your definition of planetary health. I mean, I feel like the first thing that I really love is that it has so many different like definitions, because like, is it like if I ask somebody else what planetary health is, they might be like, well, it's this to me. Okay, so it's that. Okay, well, that's good to know, you know, if I was ever quizzed on what planetary health was, I could kind of just give my little own definition or perspective.
Yeah.
So that's good. And I think the other thing that I really liked is you talked about it being really interconnected and interdisciplinary. And I feel like that is so, so important. Like in environmental justice, or at least for me, I feel like the environment is so interdisciplinary, like our built environment, social environment, health environment, whatever the case may be, like that. I feel like I love that perspective because it makes it easier, at least in my mind, to bring all the other fields together, because it's not just about environment, it's about housing and all that other stuff, right?
A lot of things. It's very similar to kind of One Health. I'm pretty sure you have a public health background.
Okay.
But I think the difference is really the focus is on the environment, and One Health is kind of like on health specifically.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I love. So then I guess my next question is, how did you get into planetary health? Like, was there like an instance or something or experience where you're like, oh, I want to do planetary health? Did you grow up and know that you were going to be in the planetary health field? Or did you just like have something, that telepathy come to you and you just knew this was
No, it was an accident, honestly. When I decided I wanted to be an environmental scientist when I was an undergrad, I was literally in every club and organization, and I really had a hard time specifying what I wanted to do. So when I came across what planetary health was last year, I was like, oh, this is what I've been doing my whole life. I get it. And it all started essentially with me applying for a job. I didn't get it, but they did offer me a paid internship, and it gave me the opportunity to kind of learn about planetary health and understand what it is, and use my public health background with like data analysis to kind of help them build a database. So that's how I came into this. And it feels nice to have like a title to like what I am or what I'm passionate about.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, because Krista, the planetary health expert, professional right here. Like, I love that. I was like, okay, this has a ring to it. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing for you to even, I mean, it just also shows, I guess, how interdisciplinary public health is, because you were able to use your public health training to get a job in like planetary health on a position that you didn't even originally get, but still kind of fell into that position somehow. That's just, wow, that's really amazing for you to have kind of got into that sector. So what did you think that you were going to be doing? Like, prior to planetary health, were you going to be environmental scientist, or what were you thinking?
I didn't know.
Honestly,
I didn't know. I knew I loved environmental justice, but it's such a broad field. And I found that a lot of people were like specialized in one thing. And it's like, well, I just don't want to talk about water scarcity or like urban ecology. Like, I want to do global health. I do want to talk about infectious diseases. And this field like allows me to use, those multiple layers and variables to help like solve a problem, which I think is like essential in the world that we're living in. You can't talk about one thing without bringing up another.
Wow, you're speaking my language right now. We might actually be the same person. Let me mention, Krista is from Detroit, y'all. She is from Detroit, so that already just puts her at the top, first and foremost. But second, just like you talking about, like, because I feel like I'm the same way, and I feel like we're not the only people like that. I just feel like so many like young middle schoolers or high schoolers that, you before you get to college, they're like, all right, pick what your thing is going to be. This is what you're going to study, things like that. But like, I'm the same way. Like, I love so many things. Like, how dare you tell me and put me in a box and say like, oh, this is going to be what you have to focus on. Like, even with the environment, it's so broad, and people are like, oh, so like, what's your thing? What's your specialty? I'm like, well, I guess anything that has to do with equity and justice, like, that's going to be my thing, because if it has to do with that, then, I'm here for it. Where do I sit?
That is so true. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is how can we bring justice and improve health. So
Exactly. I don't care what it is, like what the focus topic is, as long as I'm on that equity side of it, I'm here for it. Let me know what I need to do. So awesome. Thank you so much. That was amazing. So I want to talk a little bit more about your experience in planetary health, and especially as being a woman in planetary health, but also being a black woman in planetary health. And I feel like I don't know as much about the sector as you do, but are there a lot of us there? I mean, what are just some of your experiences just having been in the planetary health field?
Well, I would say it is a very like white male dominated field. And if you go to like most websites or programs that do have this specialty, you don't really see anybody that looks like you or me. And it is very frustrating to be in that space. But I think one really great thing about environmental justice and equity is bringing in other people that, look like us. And the reality is that we are doing that work, but we're not always represented in that way. There are plenty of Black women that are in the environmental science field doing a variety of different research projects and government policy and all types of stuff, but we're not always given the credit, which is another part of like my work is, creating a work group for Black women who are in planetary health and letting them know like, hey, you fall within this field, like this could be a really great opportunity for you to connect with someone else and have, some resources and whatnot. So I would say that. And then as far as like my experience, I would say I've had a very good experience because the people that I'm working with, they're really about inclusivity, and they, allow me to sit at the table, and be there with them, but they also want me to create my own, which allows me to kind of like make the rules and say like, this is what we're going to do and have a voice, which I think is just as important.
Wow, I love that. I feel like you said a couple of powerful things. Like I think just the first thing of just saying that, yeah, there are some of us like we're here, we're in the field, like, hello, but it's like we don't hear about their work as much. And like I think for me, like up until maybe, I don't know, 2 years ago, I felt like I didn't know anyone really in this sector. I'm like, where is all my people at? Like, do we exist? Are we like, do we not know about it? Like, what's going on? But like now I'm like in all of these groups of like EJ activists and environmental sector, energy sector, and there's all of these amazing people of color. And I'm just thinking like, how did I not know you? Like, why don't we know each other? Like, we need to connect. Like, it's so crazy. Like, and I think that just goes back to similar to what you said, just us having to work twice as hard just to get acknowledged. Like, I feel like I have that dream like almost every day, trying to push myself so much to the limit, past the limit, just to get some type of recognition, which it sucks. It definitely does. But I mean, I'm doing it for the culture. I know it's going to pay off. But I mean, it's not hard at all. But would you say that you found like mentors in the field, just having been working in planetary health lately?
I would say I've been connected to a lot of people, but even before that, like with going to Spelman, I saw Black women who were in this field or like women of color in general. So I was already exposed to like, okay, this could be me. These are the possibilities. Like I can be in this space, even if I do have to work hard. So that was like the pro to my experience. And I'm hoping that I do meet, some women who have some more experience in the field of planetary health and kind of find mentorship. That's a personal goal for me, honestly, at this point.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like mentorship is so important, especially for having being in a sector like this. Like we need to see people who look like us, especially those people who are in those higher up positions, because basically, what do I need to do to get where you are? Like I need to see your resume, your cover letters. I want to see the steps. Like I need that type of mentorship because I'm trying to be where you're at, in a couple of years. So I think that is so important and something that like gets overlooked by a lot of people, but mentors really are like your lifeline in the career sector. So that's good to know that, you feel like you've been able to kind of connect with people and colleagues, but still having that goal of eventually getting like these close connected mentor too. So I'm rooting for you.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so moving on to our next question. I want to know, and I want like, whatever your transparent answer is, why do you think that it's important for people of color to even be involved in planetary health or even to know what in the world it is?
Okay. Well, let's say a lot of, people of color know exactly what planetary health is. It's just not that academic or professional definition. I know plenty of, people of color who are physicians who, are a part of the Planetary Health Alliance for Physicians. I know a lot of, people of color who are into holistic health or whatnot. I know a lot of people of color who are farmers or into sustainability. And those all fall into the realm of like planetary health. And then there's like this historical link for like Black and Indigenous people with, nature. And the center idea for like our ancestors was essentially like intersectionality or interconnectedness between everything. And so this is actually like a subtopic within planetary health, and it's called like Indigenous Approaches to Science. And it's not about finding like new solutions, but looking to our past to understand how our ancestors kind of connected with nature, which ultimately like helped them survive in their like health. So it's already there. It's just, like I said, there's the definition isn't there. The space isn't really known, but that space is going to be known very soon to us.
Yeah. Wow. I love the concept of trying like going back to our roots and trying to, we're always like, oh, what else can we do? Like, what's something new and innovative and things like that? Just take a look at the past and see what our ancestors have done, because, like, trust me, back then they were doing some stuff that I wish I knew.
There are a lot. One of my favorite things, or my interest, is food systems. And so one thing that I found out, with slavery, they were using monoculture, which is ultimately like very bad for the environment. Like soil isn't built to, grow one thing. And George Washington Carver was like telling people, you need to do multiple crops and rotate crops and things like that. And now you look at it and they're like, FDA is like, oh no, we can't just, have these one industrial type monoculture crops. It's ruining, our planet and the soil, and then allowing CO2 to get into the environment, climate change and all of that stuff. So, with those links are already there, we just have to like reveal them and let them come back.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy to even think about. So I mean, I guess one of the just follow-up questions to my previous one is because I know for me, and just have given everything that has been happening with, for example, police brutality and just everything that happened with the election and just in general, all of the stuff that we have going on, one in the US is just crazy right now. And with COVID too, which is still a thing after a whole year.
Half.
Yeah, a year and a half, actually. Exactly. So who'd have thought? So, I mean, how do we get people to, I guess, one, connect those things to planetary health, if they can be connected? And two, how do we get people to, because it just seems like there's always something we're advocating and fighting for and competing for. Like there's always another hashtag and things like that. And so I know for me, like sometimes there's this post that I have saved that I want to like post, and it's saying like, why are we talking about environmental justice or things like that and climate justice and stuff? But then I kind of low-key feel bad because I'm like, but such and such, this hashtag about, say her name just came up or something else, or, say, there's always something. So like, how do you navigate that? How do we get people to know that environmental justice or planetary health is important right now too? And I know that was a big question too.
It is a big question, but this is something that I've been like thinking about since grad school when I was at Tulane. One thing that I realized as a researcher is there's a real gap between like the technical research scientists and the community. And a solution to most of our problems are to connect the two, because most universities are like a major resource for the communities that they surround, like Tulane, New Orleans, the wards that they're near, like the research that they do, the HIV testing, the health education, like all of those things are beneficial. And then you have scientists who are just like, oh, environmental justice doesn't exist. So it's really just connecting the two communities and allowing them to like share, some of their concerns. But it's also this idea of interplanetary health, interconnectedness. Everything is connected together. You want to talk about police brutality? Let's talk about housing. Let's talk about, chronic illnesses. Let's talk about economic stuff. It's all connected together. And if we can, find a way to link those things together and stop making them separate subgroups, we can definitely like connect the dots. But yeah, I think the first step is definitely kind of bridging the gap between the technical language and then the community that's like, we're having this problem and we want to answer, and they're getting ignored constantly.
Yeah. Wow. I think those were all great points. I mean, just thinking about how important communication is, and like active communication, like in lay terms, in a way where people are going to even know what in the world you're talking about. No one knows what policy 369 AB meant. I don't even know what that policy meant. No one knows what all those numbers, if it's statistically valid, all of that stuff. Like, that doesn't do anything for the community at all. And I feel like, at least, and tell me if your experience was different in public health, but like in public health, I feel like we're so big on like research this, research that. I found these findings, blah, 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 blah. I want to publish another paper. Like, okay, but what is this paper going to lead to? Is it going to be a like intervention? Are we going to implement something? Are we going to work with the community or something? Because people in the public health field frustrate me a little bit, because we're just so research and published hungry. Like, do you feel like you've seen the same thing?
Literally just stole the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say, like, we live in a society that's always driven by data, and data is the thing that like validates our existence, but that's not the reality of, you know, the world that we live in. It's not. Our human existence is our experience living, and we deserve to be listened to. Radical listening, that's a part of the organization that I'm interning for. It's listening to the community needs and then finding ways to help them based upon what their desires are, and respecting their culture and beliefs in a competent way. So yeah.
We're speaking the same language. That's so crazy to me. Like, just even thinking about interventions and when you involve the community, like that shouldn't even be a question. Like, that community involvement exists at all stages, like brainstorming, all of it. Like, I don't understand how you're going through making decisions, doing research, all these other things about a community, for a community, but without the community. Like, it makes no type of sense. So yeah, I just had to put that out there.
I haven't been on a research project that hasn't involved a particular community. Like, I'm thinking, I'm like, no, it hasn't existed. It always involved going out into the field and communicating with outside people outside of the team. So
yeah, it's crazy how some people still don't get that. But yes, that's the world we're living in. Slowly trying to hopefully change that perspective. But I do want to move on to the next question that I have, which is, what does planetary health have to do with environmental justice? So Green Table Talk, we always got to throw in something about, just environmental justice, of course, but also how we think about our different topics in the lens of people of color and communities of color, and kind of, does planetary health focus specifically on communities of color, or does planetary health focus just broadly, just on, around topics around planetary health?
So I think it really depends on like which sector or subtopic. But from my understanding, most of them focus on which groups are going to be, the most vulnerable or at risk. The work that I've been doing with Health and Harmony, we're working in Madagascar, Indonesia, and Brazil. We're looking at indigenous communities that are most at risk, for their forests or their homes kind of being destroyed because of deforestation or climate change or whatnot. So we are, looking to see what are some of the injustices. But overall, I think most people who are planetary health scientists look to see, who is going to be impacted the most if we don't make some type of change to this ecosystem. A really big thing that everyone's talking about is climate change. So the wildfires in California, who can pick up their stuff, sell their house and leave California, and who has to stay? That's a planetary health issue. How are we going to help those people who are at risk when we talk about Louisiana and the coastal flooding and the sea rising? Who's going to be able, to get out and to leave? Not many people, even from a historical perspective of looking at Hurricane Katrina. So it's something that is consistent throughout most work and projects that I've, seen, is equity, looking at marginalized groups. And then there's a lot of like subtopics within environmental justice, such as food desert, access to nutrition, which type of chronic diseases are more prevalent in certain areas. So it definitely exists depending on what your research project is, but I've definitely had some experience with applying an environmental justice lens to my planetary health research projects.
I love that. I feel like those just like scenarios that you gave me, low-key gave me chills, because just thinking about that in a type of situation, like who can leave, who can, you know, there are thousands of people who cannot. And that's just, yeah, that's definitely something that I feel like I think about constantly, especially because I feel like one of the topics that a lot of people are talking about now is climate gentrification. That's been something that's been like on people's radar lately for obvious reasons. And I think that whole situation is just crazy because now we can't just worry about regular gentrification. Now we got to deal with climate gentrification. Like, how many more gentrifications do we have to deal with? Like, that makes no sense to me at all.
Yeah, as long as there's injustice and there's not any type of equity, there's always going to be a new problem. And that's just because we've gotten so far away from the natural processes of our ecosystem and our world to like humans ones, which have completely like disrupted a lot of balances in our natural system. So it's always going to be something until we make the cultural change to think differently about our environment and stop seeing ourselves on top of like the food pyramid and see ourselves as a part of the food web.
Yeah.
But that's hard. It's a culture
Yeah,
change. Like those are some of
it
the most
is.
difficult things to do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And let's talk about that a little bit because I feel like a lot of just reasons that we are the way we are and all this stuff, a lot of it is it's a behavioral. And like even just thinking about climate change, I don't know, maybe I'm just like pessimistic today, but just thinking about the idea of Americans being able, or just I guess just humans in general, being able to make those adjustments and those, I guess, sacrifices, personal sacrifices and things like that to, you know, for the good of everyone, for climate change and to slow that down for our future generations and things like that. Like, it's all like behavioral. And I'm just like, I don't know. I really think that, or at least in the US, we're really, we wait until after the thing has happened. So just like we did with COVID, for example, in other cases, we wait until the damage is already done and it's kind of too late for us, right? Like,
Yeah, that's true. A big part of it too, in my personal belief, is like a lot of the things that we are seeing aren't necessarily things like some type of degradation that has been happening over the past 10 years. It's like hundreds of years of like industrial revolution, the devaluing of certain human lives. So it's just the buildup of all of these things. And in order to like make those changes, we have to completely like break down the foundation and build a new one. But that's difficult because
yeah,
it means some people are going to have an advantage, you know, vulnerable groups, and some
yeah,
people are going to have to make sacrifices. And that's not the culture of our society. Everything is about, you
right.
know, individualism and how can I win? It's not about how can we win, you know, together.
Yeah, exactly right. That's so crazy. I can't even begin to think about the idea of starting over and like hundreds and hundreds of years of just like us going the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, we're gonna get off of that. But on a
Yeah.
positive note,
Yeah.
we're all here for the positivity. But
Mhm.
I'd love to know just kind of like what's next for you. I mean, where do you see kind of your work going and your interest in planetary health? Do you have any cool, exciting projects coming up? I know you mentioned the database of people of color and planetary health and things like that. So I'm curious to know kind of, you know, what you're thinking for yourself.
So one really big thing for me this year is creating that work group. I'm definitely trying to find a creative way to get people to interact because I know so many people are zoomed out and we're at home and we're just like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So that's a really big project for me because I met you today. We're from the same place. We have the same interests. Like, imagine if we would have met 10 years ago. Like, it would have
Oh,
been
you'd be in
crazy.
a
Like,
powerhouse, right?
exactly. So I really want to help do that and kind of pull other younger undergrads kind of into that so that they can have potential research projects and internships. And I know a lot of companies are interested in diversity and inclusion. So if there is a position like, hey, here's a Black woman, she goes to this school and she's an expert in this and
Right.
has this skill. So that's my goal right now is to continue to
Yes.
build that and find people who are interested in that type of work.
Yes.
Um, Outside of that, that's all I really want to do. I am into sustainability and
Yes.
growing my own food. So, I have a little balcony garden. I'm hoping to have a good
Yes. I
harvest in a
love
couple of
that.
weeks. Yes.
Yes.
So continuing to learn about that, but that's
Yes.
what's next for me. It's just continue to live this lifestyle and kind of change my behavior and like do this environmental education portion that I'm passionate about.
Yes, yes. Wow. I love that for you so much. I mean, I'm excited for you. I'm just like, yes, yes, I'm right here cheering you on from Atlanta. Please know that. And we're going to have to work together and connect again. This is
We
not going to
are.
be the last time we're talking at
We
all.
are.
So just moving on to, I just have a last bit of questions. So the next one is, what can we do? I know we got into a whole of talking about everything in the past of everything that's going on and stuff like that, but what can we do? And this could be either on the individual level, what resources or what communities, what groups, what policies, the type of programs, what can really be done to support this idea of planetary health and advance it, especially within our vulnerable communities?
Well, I think there are so many like projects out there that are planetary health focused, but they're not necessarily labeled as planetary health.
Yeah.
And a lot of the projects are beneficial to communities. There's a woman at Michigan State University. Her name is Dr. Amy Pierce. She's doing work related to community revitalization and building like urban green spaces in the city of Detroit.
Oh,
And she's
wow.
looking to see if people have nice green spaces, if it will improve their mental health, if they will alleviate chronic illnesses, and just trying to see the benefits of that. And it's also really great because you're creating a green space and, not so nice areas. So that's a really great project, not only for her data, but also for the community. Like they benefit from those free, health tests. They benefit from that green space. There's another really cool global project in Finland. They created a forest floor. So they mimicked the forest and they allowed children to play out there because they wanted to see, are there any health benefits of children being outside and playing in dirt? And it turns out it builds their immune system. It
Oh,
helps
wow.
them, there were less cases of asthma and whatnot. So there's a lot of like cool projects that are directly impacting people. I don't think they've gotten to the point where they're influencing policy, but I think a lot of companies are going to start outsourcing this, information and data so that they can kind of have these initiatives, because a lot of companies are kind of required to have like some type of environmental justice or an environmental health lens. So this is going to be really great if like these large Fortune 500 companies are like, okay, we're going to build a park with trees. It's beneficial, and it's all interconnected and it allows us to, get outside and all that. So.
Yeah. Wow. No, I feel that, like, for anyone who's listening, if you're not in the environmental sustainability, environmental justice, planetary health sector, you better get in that sector because you're missing out. People are going to be wanting us. They're going to be paying big bucks for people like me and Krista because everyone's going to need a climate person. They're going to need some type of something that has to do with the environment and environmental justice. I mean, I feel like I'm already starting to see that people, hiring people for social justice and like even like paying people for TikToks and all types of stuff. So like, I think the environmental justice sector, like we're coming up in the world. So you guys better watch out.
It's kind of just like with, COVID. Now every company has to have a public health analyst.
Yep, right. So, hello, I'm right here.
Exactly. So it's definitely there that there's momentum for that to occur.
Yes, exactly. I'm excited about that. Okay, so this are the last couple of questions I have. What do you want to leave the audience with? I know you talked about tons of amazing different things, but if you had just like one or two things that you thought that you want us to take away from what you've said, what would you say it is?
I guess the most powerful thing I could say is to stray away from like anthropocentric ways of thinking about the environment and really learn more about this idea of interconnectedness and understand how we all connect as a species. And without one, it's not possible for us to exist. It's also important to understand that the earth will be fine. The earth has been hit by rocks, dinosaurs, a whole lot of stuff. us humans, we're a little bit more disposable, we're a little fragile. And so it's really, about maintaining our being, but also allowing future, generations to have the same experiences that we've been able to have.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Yes, the earth will be all right, but can't say the same about all us living on it.
At least not the way that we're currently
Right.
living.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, so what do you want people to know about, I guess, your work and just planetary health in general? Because I feel like this has opened up a whole new world for certain people about planetary health is everywhere. So, like, if someone is interested or wants to get involved with just in the sector, what should they do?
So it's like you said, it's a very wide field. So there's a lot of room. I think within the field of public health and environmental science, a lot of it is data driven. So having the skills to know, make dashboards and make visuals and social media, being able to, read research articles and interpret them, being able to network and not being afraid to, take internships and fellowships. Um, some schools oftentimes offer free courses, that you can take to kind of, build up your skills, but there's definitely room for people who are interested. And another great resource is the Planetary Health Alliance. They have a lot of like free resources and videos and research. And like if you're looking for a database of people who are doing research of your interest, you can go there, type in what you want to do, water scarcity, and like hundreds of people who are doing that type of research will pop up. Harvard has a program that focuses on planetary health. They also have free resources and whatnot. So it's definitely room. There's a lot of free things that you can like do and connecting with people, and being able to take a planetary health lens and apply it to like any topic is always possible as well.
Mhm. Thank you. And I appreciate those resources too that you just mentioned. Okay, so I guess last thing that I have is how can we stay connected with you? I mean, I know that I'm going to be staying connected with you, but I'm sure others on YouTube and the folks that we have on Zoom, how can we stay connected with you? Just as you've said so much, and I'm sure that tons of people are going to want to know how to follow up with you, see what you're doing, or just ask any other questions that they didn't get to ask you.
Of course. I have a LinkedIn, so Krista Micah Malusi Montgomery. You can always add me on there. If you're interested in the Black and Indigenous Planetary Health Group, which is for women, you can email me at Krista Micah Malusi, Mawusi, and then I guess I can put it in the group chat as well at gmail.com. You can email me and I can send you that survey. I'm not really big on social media. Hopefully in the future, I will have a
Understandable.
Instagram page. Right now it's just LinkedIn and email.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. I mean, this has been absolutely amazing. I appreciate you even taking the time out to join our Green Table Talk. I know this has been great for me and for those who are listening and for those who will listen in the recording. I just want to thank everyone for joining in and thank you again, Krista. You've been amazing. I love planetary health. I'm so happy that we even connected, my Detroit sister. So we'll definitely have to catch up again soon.
We will.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right. And I just stopped recording. So that'll be good. Okay. Thank you again so much. This has been so great.
It was great.
Yeah, this has been really awesome. So I'll definitely make sure to send all of the information to you, the link to the recording, and then I'll follow up with you again through email.
Okay.
We have a
Thank
comment
you.
here. Super great. Really enjoyed. Awesome.